What is up, my friends? This is Matt with PEScience, and today we are going to be making mini chicken pot pies. This is one of my favorite meal prep recipes. It's something so easy you can make for the whole week. Little pot pies, you don't have to commit to making a full pie, and we're amping up the protein in this recipe thanks to the PEScience Select multi-purpose protein powder. This is unflavored protein powder that you can use for virtually any recipe. Replace some of the flour for this protein powder. I love the fact that you can make anything savory and infuse more protein into it. You could also make sweet recipes with this, but my favorite use for this is making savory recipes. These chicken pot pies are one of them, so let's make them. We're gonna start by making our buttery, flaky pie crust with protein. I have in a bowl here all-purpose flour, and we are gonna add some of our multi-purpose protein into that. We're gonna do 2.5 scoops of this protein powder right into the bowl. And then our half a scoop. And we're gonna throw some sugar substitute into the bowl. You can also use regular sugar if you don't have sugar substitute. I just like to keep the calories a little bit lower, but either will work. And then we just have to add a quick dash of salt. Now we're gonna give this a quick mix before we add any liquid ingredients. Make sure nothing clumps up on us. All right, now for the wet ingredients, I'm gonna add some light butter into the bowl. You can use full fat butter if you want, margarine, any kind of butter spread that you can find. I like using light butter because it's lower in calories, but any fat source will work. And I like to add just a little bit at a time into the bowl. I don't like to add it in one big piece. It mixes a lot easier if you just do a little bit at a time throughout the bowl. We're gonna give that just a very quick mix. Everything does not need to be fully mixed up at this point. Now we're just gonna add 1/3 of a cup of cold water to bring everything together. Now it's important to use cold water when you mix this. If you use warm water, this is gonna be way stickier. When you use cold water, it'll actually keep the firmness to this crust so you can actually form it. If you use warm, it's gonna be a lot harder, so make sure your water is actually cold. Now we're gonna transfer this to a sheet of parchment paper to actually form it. And what I like to do is add a little bit of extra flour. Because of the protein powder, this dough is a little bit sticky, but it's nothing a little flour will not solve. So just put a little bit of flour on your surface and transfer that over. So I'm sure you could see it is a little bit on the sticky side, but when it's added to that extra flour, give it a few folds, it will be easy to work with, and that stickiness will go away right away. We want this to be nice and soft and buttery. It'll make for a flaky crust, so it doesn't need to be super firm, but once you add a little bit of flour, you will be able to pick it up and it won't stick all to your hands. A little bit is really all you need. So now we're gonna be making 12 mini chicken pot pies. So we're gonna break this up into 12 different pieces. You can use a food scale if you want them to be exact. I like to just eyeball it because if it's close, it'll work. If you do want to weigh it though, find the total weight, divide it by 12, and you will have the perfect amount. We're gonna see how close I can get just with my eyeballs though. So this pie crust becomes super buttery and flaky, so it is great in these chicken pot pies, but honestly, if you wanted to make dessert pies, it would work really well. Apple pie would be awesome. Or if you like the chicken pot pie, you can make a full one. This will make a really good full-size pie too. Whatever you want to fill a pie with, it's up to you. It'll taste really good regardless. So once you have all 12, what we're gonna do is break a small piece off of each and set it aside. That's gonna be the top of each pot pie. It doesn't matter how much you do, just a small piece. We're gonna flatten it out and it's gonna go right across the top. So it really doesn't need to be a lot, but we're just gonna set those aside while we form the pies. So I broke off 12 small pieces. Now for the fun part, we are gonna form our mini pot pies. So you're gonna take a muffin tin. We're gonna be making 12, so this works out perfectly. You don't have to spray this. It's actually easier if you don't. It gets really oily when you do, but you can put each one into the pan. So now what we're gonna do is press each one down flat into the bottom and along the sides. So you can start right in the center and then push out towards the sides. It's okay if this is thin. These are gonna puff up a little bit in the oven. So it's actually good that they are thin. You want the bottom to be flat and then push it up along the sides. And then if you find it getting sticky, because this is very buttery, if it's sticking to your fingers, you can add a little bit more flour. If you don't want to use extra flour, you can wet your fingers with cold water and that will help so it won't stick to your fingers. Either works great. If it's not sticky, even better, but if you do find it sticking a little bit, grab a little extra flour, you can sprinkle that in and it'll be much easier. Having it be thick is not a huge issue, but when it comes to pie crust, thinner is better. It'll be nice and flaky that way, so make sure this is pressed into the sides as much as you can. We're gonna save the tops for the end, and now we're gonna mix up the chicken mixture for the inside. Pie crust is ready to go, so we are gonna make the chicken pot pie filling. You can use any kind of leftover chicken. I'm using rotisserie chicken here, but if you have leftover chicken from another meal, you could dice that up and throw that into a bowl. Then we got peas and carrots. These are canned peas and carrots. You can use frozen or fresh. It'll all work the same. And then we have this cream of chicken soup, fat-free version, virtually fat-free. It's 98% fat-free. But if you want to use full fat, you can, just to save on calories. We're using the almost fat-free version. We're going to use 3/4 of a cup of that to bring that all together. Using pre-cooked chicken will absolutely save you in this recipe. If you have to make it fresh, it's just going to add extra time. When it's already done for you, it makes this nice and quick. The only work was on the pie crust. This is just mixed and we're ready to go. So we're going to take this, evenly distribute it between the 12 pot pies, and then we'll top them and be able to throw them into the oven. Now the 12 pieces of the dough that we set aside, we're gonna flatten those out, lay those on top to round everything out. I'm gonna use my extra flour to make sure they're easy to form. I like to just sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of each, and then that should be plenty. You only need a tiny bit to make it easier to work with. And then flatten them nice and thin and lay them right on the top. Don't be afraid to be generous with the extra flour if you find that it's sticking, and you're gonna just lay these right on the top. And then pinch down the sides to fully enclose the filling. Now there's extra flour on top, but we don't have to worry about that because we're gonna hit all of this with a quick egg wash and it will be beautifully golden brown once it's baked. Now I'm gonna grab my egg for the egg wash. Normally I would use a brush for the tops, but this is a judgment-free zone and I'm gonna use my hand because I don't have a brush. We're just gonna brush the tops of these with some egg. It's gonna help to make these nice and golden brown when they bake. Gonna give it really nice color, and then it'll also help to crisp it a little bit too. You can skip it if you absolutely have to, or if you prefer butter, you can use butter. It does work, just not quite as well as egg. We got the tops all brushed. I'm gonna poke holes with the fork right in the center just to stop it from poofing up too much. Without that, there's a chance that this crust will puff up quite a bit. So you just wanna give the air a chance to escape a little bit from the center. Now I have the oven preheated to 400 degrees. We're gonna bake these for 12 minutes and then they will be ready to go. Now these should be beautifully golden brown right out of the oven. We're gonna pop one out so we can get a closer look. Perfectly golden brown all the way around. Let's cut into it, see what we got going on inside. That is perfect. It's really hot. You might want to let these cool, but I'm going to take a little bite to give this a test.
No words.
Now these make a great meal as is. Everything's more fun in mini form. So this is so fun to have with the family, especially if you have kids. But if you're making this for meal prep, these keep really, really well in the fridge. Store them in the fridge and then reheat them in the oven or air fryer for 5 to 7 minutes or so. They will be perfectly golden brown, nice and hot all the way through. A flaky, buttery crust every time. You can't miss. Now, pie is not something you think of when you think of high protein, but thanks to PEScience Select Multi-Purpose Protein, you can have high protein pies whenever you want, and they are so delicious. Get yourself a tub of the multi-purpose protein. It's so good and so versatile. You can use it in anything. I absolutely love it. And if you want more recipes like this, PEScience.com has so many more that you're gonna love. Thank you for checking out this recipe. We'll see you next time.